Welcome to ECE Biography, Sage Wisdom for Childcare Leaders. My name is Tony DiAugustino. I'm the founder and CEO of Inspire Care 360. In this series of exclusive podcasts, we will meet with tenured and growing leaders in the childcare field, typically operating medium to very large childcare operations from tens of schools to thousands of schools. Our incentive is to learn what has been the path and traits that make outstanding leaders. Join us to glean the sage wisdom from these experienced individuals. Now, let's get started with ECE Biography, Sage Wisdom for Childcare Leaders.
Welcome to ECE CEO Biography, Sage Wisdom for Childcare Leaders. I'm joined today by John Bork, President and CEO of Learning Care, one of the largest early childhood education providers in the country. John stepped into the role in 2024, but has spent over 25 years building and leading organizations where people are at the center of everything. What's interesting about his background, it's always been in spaces where professionals are taking care of others. That's been a consistent thread. Before Learning Care, he founded PetSmart Veterinarian Services, Wellhaven Pet Health, and spent years helping grow Banfield Pet Hospital into the largest veterinary group in the world. And across all of that, his focus has been pretty simple: build strong culture, support the people doing the work, and make sure care is actually accessible. He's now bringing the same mindset into the early childhood education field with a real belief that if you invest in educators and support families the right way, you can change outcomes long term. He also serves on the board of Early Care and Education Consortium, helping push forward policy and investment across the industry. Originally from Minnesota, he now lives in Michigan with his wife, Jenna, who's written over 300 childcare books, which pretty well fits with the world he's in today. Welcome, John, and let's get started.
So it's really a pleasure to meet you, John. Welcome today to ECE CEO Biography. I have John Bork here with the Learning Group. And John, how are you doing today?
I am fantastic. I'm in Michigan and I just recently moved. Well, it can't be recent anymore, about a year and a half ago from Phoenix. But I'm
Oh,
born and raised in Minnesota. Didn't think
okay.
I'd move back to a snowy state, but I moved back and we're loving Michigan. I don't know if I love it today, but in general, I love Michigan. Yeah, we're loving it.
Well, I'm originally from Western New York, the Rochester, New York area. I live now in Southern Florida, so I sort of did the opposite of you. So
Yeah,
good luck with Michigan, though. I hear they have good ice fishing up there.
they do. I do. I tried it a few times this year.
Oh, fantastic. Good.
Yeah.
Anything, did you catch anything?
Like a perch about the size of my finger. Yeah.
Oh,
But it's still a fish, right? I can say I caught one.
well, good. Well, good. Yeah, I'm a bit of a fisherman outdoorsman myself, but let's go ahead and get on into it. So we're going to spend a little time today talking to John, learning a little bit about yourself here. And John, how I like to kick this off is sometimes is ask you a question such as, when you were young, sort of your more, just your younger formative years, even before like high school or anything like that, was there anything that you ran into that you started to see that you had some kind of passion for leadership? Is there anything that you saw where you're like, you know what, that might be a track that I'm into, or is that something in later life?
It came a little later, but I will say, and there's some examples there, but I will say, I was always surrounded by just great family and friends, and so I felt really fortunate to be around a really great sense of community, and that community, I still think about that community growing up. As I think through my work life, and I would say, while I didn't necessarily understand there was leadership back, grade school wise, I just knew that being surrounded by people you care for and being authentic was important, and just being yourself. And that was something that really played, as continues to play a role for me later in life.
Oh, great. Were your family members, parents, things of that, were they in different type of leadership roles in their type of opportunities and careers they did, or was it something that sort of was a more of a breakout for you in later life?
Yeah, well, my grandfather was a really big influence for me. He was someone who started his own company, and really him and I had a really special relationship. I miss him still today. And so and he would just pull me aside at times, and even when I was younger, he'd like stop maybe a conversation we're having if it's just more casual, and actually point out like what that little moment means today. So and you could see that in the businesses he ran, but it was really a special, authentic relationship that he had with me. And he would always do these little pauses with me, and I didn't see him. If my cousins watch this, they'll be mad, but I didn't see him do that with anyone else. But I felt like we had this really great relationship, and I learned so much from him early on.
So when you think about that with your grandfather and what he was doing, a lot of times I don't do these always chronological in nature. Did you find yourself emulating what your grandfather had done with you with other people that have been working with you in, your business life or what have you?
Yeah. Oh my gosh. Yes. 100%. I did it today. We were in a meeting with a large group in the boardroom, and we were talking about some wins we were having. And there's been a lot of headwinds in the business, and we were seeing some wins, and we were kind of passing over some of the wins that we were seeing. And I remember it just happened. I said, let's just take a quick timeout. Let's just take a deep breath, right? Because let's think about what just happened here and how we got there and how special that is and how great it feels, right? How great it feels to have those little wins. And if we don't take the time to look at those little wins and recognize the moment we're in, we'll forget about it and it won't be important. And it is important. And so it goes back to those early conversations with my grandfather, like time out, like just give a time out. And we did that today. And it's great just to reflect and just recognize the moment you're in, and especially those wins, right? And
Yeah.
take that time.
No, and I think that's amazing too, because I think when we get in the business world, we have a tendency, John, to always be moving and everybody having the pressure to get to the next level. And sometimes you miss those steps, those
Yeah.
small steps in between. It's great that you're pointing them out. So what would you say that does in identifying the kind of culture that you've been building there?
Yeah. I'm going to tell you, culture is everything. And the culture isn't a logo. It isn't a sign on the wall. It isn't a PowerPoint presentation. I mean, it is something you live and breathe. And the culture here, I've been here now 18 months, and I'm going to tell you, I have some of the most amazing people that I work with, the heart and the care. And I came out of a veterinary industry where I
Yeah.
just felt like, oh my God, how would I ever find more caring people, right? And I found that here. But to actually generate the culture that you want about making sure um, families feel trusted and teachers feel respected and children feel inspired, it takes every moment of your day to think about it. I tell a lot of people, if we aren't leaving as leaders emotionally exhausted, right? Not physically exhausted. Our teachers are leaving both physically and emotionally
Yeah.
exhausted. So we need to give them that respect. But if we're not, because we're not doing that work that they're doing, but we should be leaving emotionally exhausted, thinking every single day about that teacher or that child. When we start to do that, the culture just starts to come together. It's more than just, as I say, words on a wall, right? But culture is everything today. And I would go back to the space we're in, the industry we're in has been going through so many changes, right? And so many tough times, and we're doing great work, right? But the landscape continues to shift, and we've got to bring back culture because we'll win when I'll go back, we'll win when teachers feel respected and families feel trusted and children feel inspired. It doesn't matter how many locations I have or how many students we're enrolling, it's about that. And that's the breath we have to live every single day, which takes a lot out of you, but it's the good work. It's good work.
No. And I love the fact that you say that basically you almost need to be emotionally exhausted by the end of the day because I have my own schools too, and much smaller than what your little bit of environment is. But with that said, you know, those teachers and especially those directors, they're
Yes.
they're giving their all every single day. And, a lot of times when you're in management, you do a lot of thinking, a lot of strategizing, and a lot of trying to, how do I take that strategy and get to tactical implementation, blah, blah, blah. But sometimes, you start to get away from the day-to-day activity of seeing how drained people can actually be
Yeah.
in. So, how is it, what is your philosophy in a bit, when it comes to your culture, maybe the underpinning and those values underneath that? Of, with such a big enterprise, and if I saw that correctly, and correct me if I'm wrong, you guys, between your multiple brands you have about 1,150 locations altogether. Is that about right?
Yeah, we enroll just about 7,200 new families a week. And so it's a
Wow,
pretty big enterprise. Yeah.
that is huge. That is wonderful for you guys. Congratulations.
Thank you.
How is it possible for leadership over such a big organization to tactically get to impacting those exact teachers and those families? And to me, I'm a big believer in teachers. Teachers are the
Yeah.
secret sauce of our business.
Yeah. Yeah. Um, Boy, that's a great question. And maybe if I take it back to like a story that kind of
Yeah,
changed me, right? That actually shows up and how and the people that I hire around me and how that is so important. And I back in my late 20s, I had already had some success in business, not related in that I was living all over the country and had a lot of success, and my ego was big, right? I felt like, hey man, I could figure a lot of things out, and I was 29 years old and I took this job for a little company called VetSmart, and they had like 20 locations across the country, and they were struggling and trying to figure some things out. And I remember, and people will know VetSmart is Banfield. They changed their name later, but I remember I'm like I reluctantly took the job, right? I'm like, all right, I can help them out. I'll go in there. I was used to starting businesses and getting going and moving, and I'm like, I can go figure this thing out. I kind of went in with this little swagger, and but one of the things I did say as I started, I said before I can even work and consult and help this business, I need to put some scrubs on. I want to put scrubs on for a few weeks and learn the business, right? And understand the in and out, which I still do that today, right? But my first day changed me, 100% changed me. And I was in Minnesota, and it was in the middle of January. It was cold. I had just started. I'm in scrubs, and I'm in the front. And the veterinary community, much like the teacher community, is 85% female. And
hmm
I am standing out in front, and we're all talking about our end of the day. What do we got plans? It's a Friday night. When are we going to go? And we're about ready to walk out, and in walks a dad with his two daughters and a German Shepherd that has been hit by a car.
Oh, God.
And like I have no idea. Like I and the father immediately assumes I'm the doctor and gives me the pet, right? And I'm like, huh. Well, at that time, in walks Dr. Andrews, in walks her lead tech, and they take the pet in the back. The one technician takes the two young girls and puts them in a room and gives them a coloring book. The other nurse goes in and starts talking to dad, tries to calm them down, and I'm just standing there. I'm just trying to get out of the way. And and now the outcome of the story was the pet survived and the pet was able to go home, and thank goodness, right? That wasn't what changed me. That was impactful. Don't get me wrong. Like we just saved a
Yeah.
life, right? But it was on my way out the door. Because what had happened is now this all transpired. The little girls are doing fine. The dad is still holding himself together. Dr. Andrews comes out and says, my gosh, you guys, you did an amazing job. She complimented all of us, even me, saying, hey, John, thanks for staying out of the way, right? But like, and she did like, we just did something really special here. And thank you, thank you, thank you. Now it's 10 o'clock at night. All of our plans had changed, but we were all feeling good about what just happened. We didn't care about our plans. Now we're
Right.
walking out to the parking lot, and I'm ready to get in my car, and I see Dr. Andrews walk towards her car, and I see she's not getting in. And so it's cold out. And so I'm assuming back in Minnesota, the locks are frozen or something. She couldn't get in. And I walk over towards her, and I'm behind her, and I said, Dr. Andrews, and I could see her stand up. Now remember, she just said, like, gave us all these compliments. She turned around and she was crying. And I had no idea, like, why is she crying? And she said to me, she goes, John, it's 10 o'clock at night. This is the fourth night in a row I haven't been able to leave until after 10. And I got a 3-month-old baby at home and I can't put her to bed tonight. Right.
Oh,
And like, here is someone so giving, so caring, right? That she's giving up like a lot of her other parts of her life. And what you knew is many people were jumping into the profession like teachers and were jumping out of they spent their whole lives at 5 years old to become a veterinarian or become a teacher. And they get into
right.
the role and they're unprepared. It's more chaotic. There's a lot of emotion there and they don't understand and they leave, right? And I
Right.
remember driving home that night and checked all my ego. I just had a little baby myself. So I had a little daughter at home that was her same age. And I get emotional thinking about it. I get goosebumps and when I still think about it today. And I remember going, my gosh, I could never be that veterinarian. I wasn't smart enough to take that path, right? I never had that. I wouldn't have been able to do that. But what I did know is I could help her, right? I may not get her out at 10 o'clock every single night, but I can help her with communication. I can help her with building a team. I can help her with building labor models. I can help her with communication. I can help her with so many things so that those things why she joined that profession, why it was so important for her, and all the noise that comes, you don't even realize it when you take that profession. I can clear that deck for her a lot more. So the thing that she made a decision at 5 years old to become, she can want to be that. And she can tell her little daughter when she gets older, it's like, be a vet. It's the same thing with teachers, right? It's the same thing with directors. What can I do? How do I think about Dr. Andrews? How do I think about teacher Sheila? Every single time I get into a boardroom and realize what they're going through, what they need, how do I take stuff off their back? How do they make them feel inspired? How do I make them tell their daughter to go be a teacher? How do I get to that? And that
Right.
is like, I don't know if I'm necessarily answering your question, but that is the part of like who I am. And the people that surround me are in that same nature, that level of connected to the profession and feeling honored and privileged to be in it gives us the first opportunity to actually make a bigger impact on the world. So,
And that's amazing, John. You know, what you talk about, I would summarize as a servant ladder, leader. And the servant leaders, obviously your role is to remove barriers, to really let people find their way in the career that they chose. And a lot of people, especially like in the childcare field, probably not as much as like the veterinarian field, because I got a feeling like my son was really passionate about pets. He just couldn't
yeah,
see any blood with pets and stuff
yeah,
like
yeah,
that. So he
yeah, yeah,
decided, no. But as we know, we have a lot of people who come into our industry who sort of weren't expecting to come into the
yeah,
industry.
yeah,
But once they get here, they really grab a passion for it. And having that servant leadership model, I think, is probably what serves your culture, your underlying pinnings of that culture. So yeah, it does answer my question.
yeah,
What I'm trying to get to. When you started, and I saw, like your path was really sort of that almost in the veterinarian hospital, all the way
yep,
up through PetSmart, I believe.
yep,
And then eventually you made the move over to childcare, which in a way it's probably congruent in a lot of reasons because we're taking care of little ones to a
mhm.
certain degree that really don't have a lot of say for themselves.
Yeah, they don't have a voice. Yeah. They have
Yeah,
a voice through their parents, and
yeah,
their parents are bringing their most valuable asset, their most precious thing they own and have and care for into your facility and ask you to care and educate them. Well,
yeah,
that is a responsibility on both sides of everything that I've done. Like, how do you recognize that, right?
right.
And yeah, there's a lot of similarities, and the same similarities exist with affordability, access to care, right? Connecting and developing, our teachers and our directors, and always be educating and always be learning, right? And so
Right.
there's so many levels of similarities that exist there.
When were growing up in your more formidable years outside of your grandfather, how important did you find, or did you leverage any type of mentorship along the way?
Yeah, I mean, I had a lot of mentors in my career, and I think, and when I say mentors too, I look at all these people who help form and shape me in a really positive way. But I also go back to those ones that I say, oh my God, I don't never want to be like that, right? I know how it feels, right? And I know what it looks like. And so I think that those mentors along the way have really helped shape. Like I like, I'm a positive individual. I'm optimistic. I like to feel good, right? And I like it when that's an important part of it, right? And so those mentors, there's a lot of things I can take from many mentors, but I always look at different behaviors and skill sets that they gave me that, I've either tried to latch onto or try to escape from.
Well, and and I sort of look back at that, there's different people who just sort of lucked out and finding some people in their lives that were great for that. And there's other people who sort of seek them out. One of the reasons for this podcast is really for those who are aspiring, leaders to ascend and glean from people like yourself. What are some of the things that you did that helped you become successful in what you're doing? When you looked at whether it be mentorship or becoming knowledgeable in an area, what was typically your path? Did you sort of luck out a little bit and fall into it, or did you have a very focused approach? And I'll tell you with myself, I'm probably not as focused as I probably should be. So
We can all say that.
I lay that down a little bit ahead of time.
Yeah. Yeah, I mean, I'll go back. I've had early in my career, I've been able to work with a lot of executive coaches, one in particular for quite a few years, and I think the thing that those individuals, having someone who will give you honest, direct feedback, that's in a safe environment that you can really embrace, right? And I went in. I remember when I first started doing it, I didn't know how much I wanted to share, and you kind of just separate. You're just like, all right, is this just a kind of just thing I need to do until I got a really good relationship and started to understand. And one of the things that I probably overshare, but she says there's going to be times that Johnny needs to go to his room, right? And I said, what does that mean? She goes, well, she learned so much about me in my early childhood and later in life about how do I decompress from stressful situations? How do I make sure I show up? And she was able to point at like, hey, when you're having a fight with your brother, little brother, you know what? The bet like I would just go to my room and take 10, 15 minutes and relax, whatever, and come out just being happy, right? And I remember my parents and I were like, what the heck, right? Well, she related that to like, John, when you're in a point where you want to make a quick decision or you feel like you're agitated or whatever, Johnny needs to go to his room. Like take a deep breath and reflect, right? Think about the steps that are going to be taking when you make that type of decision. And is that how you want to show up, right? In a 5 minute, 10-minute deal for you to decompress in the right environment is healthy for you. You show up differently that way. And I find those moments where may not always just be able to get out of a room and go to my office or go to my car or go wherever, but I find areas within my day to actually take a deep breath. I journal a lot. I journal every single week, and now I'm sharing my journals with my head of corporate communications. I've journaled my whole life, right? And I think
Wow.
those are pieces that I think have played a role. And I think the amazing thing is to go back and read those journals, right? I think I mean, there's so many memorable parts of like, I always write at one certain period of the year, every November. I'm back with my family in Minnesota, and I have a journal of like, how was my year and what is next year going to look like? Where do I think I'm going to be? And what do I think I'm going to do? So it's always interesting to go back to read those and realize, oh my God, I wasn't even close, right? In some of those spots. But the special ones are reading, my son was born on Thanksgiving Day and my daughter was born on Christmas Day. And I always do November, reading the November notes of, oh, like, I'm going to have a daughter. And like, what is it going to be like? And what is it going to be like next year? And what do I think I'm going to write? And oh my gosh, it was
Wow.
precious, but man, was I wrong? Like the perspective of what that was and what that meant. And I love my children are wonderful. I always I want to make like the jobs I take and the mission center stuff that I do. Part of it is I want my kids to be proud of me, right? And I know they
Yeah.
are, but that's a big part of that reflection point and reading those journals and understanding that helps you kind of realize my path and where I'm on and what's important.
So that's just amazing. I have a couple questions that brings up then. When you started journaling, um, was it someone who helped you get there, or did you just naturally start to do it? And what did you see that the benefit was going to be for yourself in doing it?
Yeah, my mom journaled, and so that's where that came from, and and I like writing, and
Okay.
so it just started. it started probably right after high school, and I would do it every once in a while, and then I just started to do it. And it was the ones when I was because I just started by only doing it on that November, right? And just
Yeah.
journaling that, and then coming back to it the next year, and then I'm really like, oh my God, like why am I doing it once a year? And I started to just do it more often. I would do it during like a stressful week in my life or something that was pretty special. I would do those almost like a diary more than anything,
Yeah.
but then it just starts. And I'm in the practice now of I journal my week every week. What did I
Oh,
see? Where, and I'm going to tell you, you know, what's super helpful is AI in that. I can just talk right into it and just go, and it takes so much time off, and it speaks my voice. It's wonderful. So I would
yeah.
encourage if you're not if it's the time you take to write and do it. No, it takes 10 minutes a week, and it's
Yeah.
powerful. Yeah.
And that is a powerful way to think out of it because of, obviously as the tools advance, of course, you think about where's that going to go and how's
Yeah.
it going to be
Yeah,
used.
right.
But
Yeah, right.
for the most part, though, it's got everybody at this point. So,
Yeah.
best of luck.
Yeah.
But what do you tend to get the most out of your journaling? What does it do for you in your reflections?
Yeah, it helps me not make fast, unthought through decisions, right?
Okay.
If it was important for me personally or professionally or for the business a week ago or 2 months ago or 6 months ago, and it still stays same, it keeps me on the path. I always say that my role in the hardest job, one of the hardest jobs I need to do is I can create the vision and where we want to go. But if I go 6 degrees off center every single week, right, and I just keep going a little off of where I really wanted this to go, I can wake up 6 months down the road or 3 months down the road, and that's 6 degrees off center has taken me way off path, right? And so it helps me stay centered on that lane. Doesn't mean I don't make adjustments. I learn and maybe what I thought was wrong and I make adjustments, but it helps me stay centered and go back to like, I can remember why I wrote that. I can remember what I was thinking at that time and all the data and the insights I had to come to that level of thought. Now I have
Right.
new thoughts that come through, but it helps me stay super centered.
Yeah. And one of the other things you mentioned, which I think, relates to your journaling, but you've mentioned it several times, is how you show up. And you've explained a lot with yourself and your sort of inner management of how you're looking to manage yourself and how to get yourself to the next level. When you look at being a coach and being a coach to your team or even people outside of the industry, what have you,
Yeah.
that you work with, how do you help them think about showing up when they show up for what they're trying to do?
Yeah, it's I think it goes back to the authenticity, giving them the space and to say, how are you really feeling? Like, don't tell me what I want to hear, right? And say, what are you really thinking, right? It's okay. I want a diversity of thought, right? And give it, but it takes time to build trust. It takes time to make them feel comfortable, just like it did when I talked about my earlier coach. I'm like, I don't know if this was an exercise or not, right? But I realized later that it was super impactful. And so having that relationship with my colleagues, my direct reports, or just overall in general, when I do town halls, when I do town halls, I talk about authenticity. I talk about how I'm feeling. Like I recently went out to Washington D.C. I spent it was 3 weeks ago, and spent 2 days on the Hill talking to several Congress people and I was in a town hall right prior to that. And I shared with my team here at Learning Care, like, hey, I'm going in there and I'm actually nervous, right? I'm usually not that nervous, but I'm nervous. And I'm trying to think through like what do I say and what do I don't say and how do I make sure I show up in the right way and represent all of you in a good way. There's so much, and I share that but when I can show my vulnerability, I can share that, hey, I'm trying to figure it out. I think it
Yeah.
adds more of a personal connection to that. And when I came back, and I shared again, like, well, you know what? I was overthinking it. I just showed up and bed myself. I was just being authentic. I thought I had to be in this lane of say this and don't say that and what side of the
Right.
aisle you on and all. No, I just showed up as me. And when I showed up as me and talked about why, early childhood education, when we make the rest investment in young children, we help our communities, our families are stronger, our communities are stronger, and ultimately we have a stronger world. I can talk about that stuff, and it resonated. I got both sides of the aisle really very much interested in what we're doing, right? But I don't know if I would have gotten there if I was over engineering my non-self. If I was actually just being authentic of who I am and being okay with that, that's the example I think I share with my teams and with my colleagues and just in general.
Well, you bring up something I think that is super important for a number of different reasons. It's oftentimes been said that, leadership is a lonely role. And quite oftentimes, when you look at these leaders who might have 1 to 10 childcare schools, or maybe even doing multiple businesses,
Yeah.
when you're sort of at the leader of that organization, quite oftentimes, a lot of people don't want to bring to their team the issues that you're going through, that anxiety that might be driving you crazy or keeping you up at night, because they don't want a leader who whines and complains. They don't want a leader who's seeing all the problems out there that the world has. And you really well articulated the fact of being authentic is very important. And I have to imagine it's just a great foundation for trust, which is really a key word, I think, in any type of leadership role. How do you think you've started to become, authentic? Was this something that you sort of have an evolution to, or was this something that you always were just that I wear myself out on the sleeve kind of person?
Yeah, I know I made adjustments over my time and tenure and my maturity. I think I shared the story where I had probably a bigger ego than I needed in my early 20s,
Yeah,
and I realized that, hey, you know what? I, when I think that going back to the Dr. Andrews story was the pinnacle of me shifting who I am and how I lead, and how I can be more vulnerable because there's so many more people that have a much harder job than I have, and that I need to be a good listener. And so I think I got better over time. And then I also just like if I wasn't being authentic to myself, I wasn't able to show up well for my family, right? When I
right.
left, right? I wanted to just like, I think it was just more natural to me. And maybe it was my parents and my grandfather and my mentors and all that stuff, but I feel like I win better and I have better relationships and better people around me and better retention. Engagement and retention has always been a really important score for me. It's
Yeah.
a KPI that I stare at, because people don't leave organizations per se because of money. They leave because they're not connected and they don't feel like they're part of something bigger. And so that is like a flag that I have out there saying that engagement score and retention score is a direct reflection of me as a leader, right? And
Right.
so and for me to do that, I have to show up in the way I feel most authentic.
Yeah. No, it makes a ton of sense. What kind of guidance would you give to those budding leaders? Because, a lot of them, again, they may not be part of a peer group. They may not have a mentor. They may not have someone to, vent to, for lack of a better term.
Yeah,
And, they quite oftentimes feel like, and I've heard this often, I don't want to speak to my head of my operation people. I don't want to do this. I don't want them to see weakness in me.
yeah.
However, you've turned that, not that it's weakness, but it's sort of a transparency that has allowed them to see that you're very authentic, and that builds the foundation for trust. What kind of guidance would you give them?
Yeah, I mean, hey, starting and running a business is it's a lot, right? And it is lonely. I went from being part of a great group of founders to then starting one myself with my own
Yeah,
money and my own back, and that's a different world, right?
yeah,
And it is lonely, right? I will say like take partners along, and I'll use an example. Like I think some of the best coaching I've received, and the best feedback I've received is through with my vendors and my partners that are. I mean, I'll go in and say, hey, what does it mean for me to be a good customer? Right?
yeah,
Instead of going in and say, give me the greatest deal and give me the best. No, like tell me what, like if you were to me, what would you do different? How would this be different for you? How would this be better for our relationship? Because I found when I find the right service partners, right? oh my gosh, they lift me up and they jump over so many other clients to come and work for me and help
Yeah,
me because they know I'm trying to do the right thing. And it's a safe place to get feedback, right?
yeah,
You can, and you don't always have to agree with them, right?
right.
Feedback's a gift, doesn't mean you have to open it, right? But like my vendors and my partners are, I mean, some of the reason why I had some of the most success is through that, whether that's through like chamber leaders. A shout out to the Vancouver Chamber of Commerce out in Vancouver, Washington. They totally like positioned and challenged me and held me up and told me what I should do in the community and what I should do in the community. They're like people like that were just remarkable for me. And I would say
Right,
that what I would, if I were starting something up or new or you're in those types of circumstances, take them along with you because they can really help you. The right ones can help you.
right. Well, fantastic. And I can tell you, I think that's some sage wisdom there for sure. So, coming to today, what is it about your job today that you like most about what you do?
It's easy. I love getting in the schools. Love it.
Okay.
Love it. I love going in and seeing the teachers and the directors and the families, um, asking questions, being a good listener. Uh, that is wonderful from all over the country. That is my favorite part of the job.
And what do you find is the thing you like the least about your job?
It's boy, I'll say that this industry is, I feel incredibly fortunate to be here and be invited into this industry. The least part, I just think that there are things that we as an industry have to think differently. One of the things I shared when I was on Capitol Hill, and I'll just share, like, is me being transparent. I told them, I said, when I came over here and I was super excited and I started to jump into the industry, I actually felt like I went 30 years back in the past, right? Whether that was through technology and procurement and scalability and all this stuff. And so I feel like I had to kind of rewind myself. And in all circumstances, when I brought that up, many of the government, my partner said, well, welcome to education. And I said, well, it doesn't have to be. It doesn't have to be. I said, there's enough space for all of us. We'll be better when we link arms together and try to help creates the solve and the problems and help the turnover of our teachers, help them get more ready, get ourselves more prepared. And so yeah, there's a remarkable opportunity for when I say it's the things that are hard, it's like these are some hard decisions we need to do, but we're better when we're linking arms with our partners inside the industry. Don't try to
Right.
do it ourselves.
Well, that sort of leads into something you said before. From my experience in this industry, I got in the industry back in 2011.
Yeah,
So I've been in it for a little bit, and I've had my schools, and I started this company back in 2016, Inspire Care 360. But one of the things that I noticed is things did change after 2020.
yeah,
And it really jostled the industry from a number of different factors. And it wasn't just the remnants of a pandemic. It really came out of legislation. It came out of how people think about their work-life balance again.
yeah.
When you talk about headwinds, you're talking about headwinds earlier. What do you see as the top few headwinds that our industry is facing, both at, you're at the larger entity level, but also that affects right down to where I have three schools,
Hmm.
and we deal with a lot of those headwinds today that I didn't see in the same way
Yeah,
before the 2020s came about.
yeah. I would just say access to care and affordability for our families.
Yeah,
That's our biggest headwind. And that's the stuff we have to solve. And it isn't by just having, you can't just do it because of the margins and just doing a price decrease, right?
right.
I wish it was that easy. It's
Yeah,
not. It's about looking at the entire part of the business, bringing in partners, whether that's our nonprofits and for-profits and government agencies, and coming together and figure out whether that's helping shift on legislation or helping to be more efficient in our schools. How do we, I will say, leveraging technology is important. But when I say that, though, I want to make sure I reinforce that the relationship between a teacher and a child one-on-one will never go away. That is the most important part of that. But how do I take it so that the directors and the teachers aren't trying to chase so many other things so that they're not face to face with those
Right.
children every day. And that's the part I want to talk about. How do you leverage that at scale? And so there are ways in which we can do that. You know, I'll go back to one of the comments I had, like I some of the best experience going back into schools. I've met teachers who are been teaching in our schools at Learning Care for 35 years. They're teaching the children of the children they're teaching, right? And they light up, right? Now think of the quality outcome of that classroom, right? Of that school, of that community, because of that one teacher. The impact she's making is incredible. Now, go to the industry and say, and look and say, there are also so many teachers who start, who are so excited to start that 30 or 40% of them turn over in the first 90 days of joining and being a teacher. Think
Right.
about the quality outcome there, number one, right? And how the families feel and how that and the transition that happens. But also think about the costs that happen in that, right? If we can help get our teachers more prepared and getting them more ready and feeling more confident, being able that I can slow down, I can bring that turnover down, that drastically reduces the turnover, which drastically reduces the cost of turnover, which then can actually be shared with the teachers and our families. That's the type of work that we can do together. And it's not, shouldn't be a secret. We should all be coming together and talking about it. What do we
Yeah.
do? What are you doing? How do I do it? Like we should all be bringing that together because that is what changes our trajectory inside this industry.
Yeah, no, I really noticed it from when I first came in to, now one of the things is a lot of teachers were sort of on their own, sort of doing their own thing. And then eventually people brought in curriculum and everybody was sort of speaking off the same page. But then, even in at the teacher level, you have a lot of people like 35 years. I have a teacher who's been with me for 27. She's just
Yeah,
amazing. Some great people. But then you have the revolving door of the people come in every 6 months and then they're leaving
yeah,
because this wasn't right for them. And
yeah.
so oftentimes I speak about speed to competency.
Hmm.
And speed to competency is really important. I think that people in this industry tend to overlook a little bit because they think that, well, we need to have the right person with the right education, but it's really up to us as
It
leaders
is.
to find a way to get them where they feel, and I'm talking about that teacher, they feel empowered to
Empowered.
educate a child, to
Yep.
talk to parents, to engage with the premise in the classroom. So when you think about competency across the board, especially for developing that with your teacher base, what is your sort of overall philosophy when it comes to that?
Yeah, I mean, it starts at the selection process and making sure you're communicating and understanding that. But it's well, I'll go back to some of the things you just said. Getting them the competencies and getting them to that point of feeling comfortable. In some cases, it's yes, there's competencies we should be really asking and leaning in to make sure there's patience and there's caring and there's communication and all those pieces. But sometimes it's as simple as saying, I see you, as a director saying, I see you, teacher. I see it. Stuff. Go take 10 minutes. I got it. Right. Recognizing the signs in which that teacher is feeling flustered. Remember, I go back to Johnny, go to his room. It's that same point of like, how do I build the competencies and understand that it's okay for a director to say, stop what you're doing, right? I got to remove some things off of her plate because she is way too busy. She's got way too much on her plate today, 100%. Because I want her to be able to say, I can recognize when this teacher's having a tough hour and I want to give her 10 minutes, right? I want to let her know that I'm here for her, right? That's the stuff that I think we can lean in a much better way because I think we've hired some great teachers with great competencies that are super caring that want to do this but have left feeling alone and not knowing what to do, maybe a little embarrassed, whatever that case is, because we never gave her the space to be okay, right? I would say that is where we need to lean in differently.
No, and I agree with you. When you look at like things as simple as Maslow's hierarchy of needs, when people really feel like they're part of something, they feel like they belong.
Yes,
Really feel like they belong. And it sounds like that's exactly what you're talking about. To
yes,
you, it's not only about their own mental development, their cognitive ability, it's the ability that they feel they're part of something bigger.
agreed.
And like the learning group is obviously hopefully demonstrating that. It sounds like they're demonstrating that how you're part of something is, being
Yeah,
bigger overall.
yeah.
And so if you were able to snap your fingers and outside of teacher wages, which just so you know is impossible,
Mhm.
um, but if you're able to snap your fingers and say, I want to make this happen tomorrow in our industry, what do you think would be that thing that you'd want to spearhead and say, we just need to solve that?
Wow, that's a wonderful question. And I'm going to always go back to, as an industry, is getting our teachers and directors well prepared, right? And first connecting to the mission, and always remember we have a mission here. If we don't share and understand and tell the good stories and connect and let them know that the work they're doing is actually changing the world, it actually is making an impact on the society, and stay in that space and live in that space versus opening up a flash report or P&L is the first thing we do. We got that can't be that's like that is if you have great outcomes and great quality and great safety and great communication, all that stuff will be great in your industry, right? In your school. So it starts there. So I really go back to shifting the culture of kindness, shifting the culture of getting our teams out in the schools to see and listen. We are too far away from many of the things that we need to do on a day-to-day basis. We can't be making decisions like that at our corporate office here. We have to get into our schools. We got to listen to our directors. We got to listen to our teachers. And we got to create that level of energy that their voice is as loud as it can be. And I think that is, and it doesn't happen overnight. But that's the shift that I want us to do, right? And I
Yeah,
want us to connect because they know it better than we do, right? They
yeah.
know what's important better than we do. They know their communities, they know their teachers, they know their parents, they know their children. Let's get their voices louder and let's go now action against those pieces. I think as an industry, we need to do that differently.
Well, and it's very thoughtful. A few of the things I captured from there, but I think we're just really, and I'll have to honestly say, John, I think they're very well thought out is, getting our teachers well prepared. The work they're doing is changing the world.
It
And
is.
that's a fantastic quote. It really is. Um, when we look at it, I've done a lot of keynote speaks at events and conferences, and one of the things I did, past 6 months was about AI, and yeah, Japan has robots in the classroom, and no, I don't think we're going there anytime soon,
Yeah,
and
no,
no
no,
one's,
no, no,
get-
no.
no one's going to be accepting that.
Mhm.
However, when you do look, and you mentioned about leveraging AI yourself a little bit too, where do you see the possibilities of the positive effects of what AI can do for this industry?
I would say from that standpoint is communication. And I actually just came back from Germany last week. I went to a early childhood education seminar on Cologne, Germany, and I did that because I wanted to understand what is other parts of the country, how are they looking at education, and are there some things I can learn differently, and are they doing other things that I'm not well aware. And I think broaden that perspective is really important. And there are some things that I saw on from an AI standpoint where it goes back to some of my journaling comments where a teacher can talk about that child or classroom, what I did, what I read, what the outcome was, and she can speak into that. And now that just sinks right into a communication on Friday back to the parent, and she can see everything that happened and the emotion and the feeling, whatever. Imagine how much time that would have taken her to actually take the
Absolutely.
time to do it, right? So I think from a communication standpoint of being able to really connect with our parents and really see the heart of the teacher and what the inner making of what that school and why the decision they made to bring their most beautiful asset of their life into our school and make it so they see why they did it and make that parent feel so darn proud that they made that investment for their little one. We can do a much better job because when dollars get tight and the economy gets harder, right? They have to make decisions. We don't want them to make a decision that their child doesn't get the unbelievable care and education. We know that children's brain develop by 80% by the age of 5. Oh my gosh. We have a real opportunity to actually help this. And then we also know when parents don't make the decision to actually have to stay home, now you've lost from a working community that parents aren't actually contributing as much as they'd like to into our economy. So there are so many parts of this that we can play a much different role. And I think AI, it's never going to take place. Take the robots. No, that'll never happen, right? Not on my watch, right? But the communication and taking that back and forth to the parent, I think, can only get enhanced.
Yeah, and it's a very good point because, oftentimes I think where things fumble within the schools themselves is really that connection sometimes to parents that they
Yes.
get, automatic, pilot and they're just moving along. And then slowly but surely you build up this inertia of either negativity or what have you, because parents don't feel engaged. They feel disconnected from what's going on with their kids. We had that happen in one of our classrooms, and luckily we found it early enough to realize, for instance, one of the parents wasn't getting back artwork. And then we found out all the parents weren't getting back artwork. And then we found out the teacher felt, well, I'm going to hold it to the end of the year. And we were like, well, wait a minute. Parents want to put stuff on the
Yeah.
refrigerator, and so it was really a communication thing that needed that, that symbiotic flow, around it overall. When,
Yeah, Tony, we've seen, there's a lot of data in this world, right? Well, there hasn't been a lot of this insights. What does the data tell us, right? And
yeah,
what do we learn from that? And I think I've hired a couple data scientists to help me understand and get some more correlation, right? And one of the things we found is that those parents who leave us in the first 120 days. They leave us for two reasons. We probably knew this already, but it's been reinforced. They leave because A, the teacher's no longer there. She turned over, and that's why they came here. They may come to you for the first day because of the sign on the outside of the window, but they stay because of the people inside it, right? So they
right,
leave because there is turnover in the school. And the second time, the second reason why they leave is because they don't feel connected. They didn't
right,
feel like they're part of that community, and they didn't have the right communication, and they just felt like they weren't connected. And those are two big things. Now we can solve both those, right? It's not easy, but we can solve both those things. And when we solve those things, right, that goes back to the cost savings and the more engagement and the better parts of the culture, and all those pieces are things that we can actually contribute to. And I'm happy to share this to everyone. Like, here's what we're finding on Insights. Go solve for
yeah,
that, right? Because it'll help us all get better.
no, absolutely. Um, Going in a slightly different direction. We're coming really near the end too. We've already gone through an hour.
Yeah.
So imagine that.
Yeah.
Um, on your journey, and if I remember looking at your biography, it was a little bit going with VetSmart that became more of like a hospital, and eventually like with PetSmart, different one.
Yeah.
Obviously the
Yeah.
large national chain.
Yeah.
Uh, uh, is it PetSmart or PetSmart?
Well, it was PetSmart and it shifted to PetSmart. But yeah, so it shifted like
Just wondering.
yeah, but yeah, it was Banfield was inside the PetSmarts. And then
Oh, there you go.
that's where I had that relationship. And then PetSmart has their own group of veterinary hospitals on top of PetSmart. Yeah. On
Oh,
top of
got it.
Banfield. Yeah.
Okay, well, good. And then you made the journey over here into this
Yeah.
neck of the woods. If you were to say that there's any mistakes that you made along your journey that you learned a lot from, what might one or two of them be?
Yeah. Yeah, I would boy, mistakes that I've made over my journey. I think I will always go back to hiring the right people, right? Um, Asking maybe more questions than just looking early on, just looking at the resume. Um,
Hmm.
Diving a little bit deeper on how they show up, how do they communicate, what's their style, and then asking more specific, giving an example of a situation and see how they respond. Because when you make a decision of a people leader, I mean, we serve people, right? And when you get that make the wrong decision there, man, it impacts so many things and so many people. Then you got to shift again, right? So I would say just making sure I'm sizing up my talent and my team in the right way to make sure I'm making good short and long-term decisions. And we're always going to get some of that wrong sometimes. I get it, but I don't think I would go back to I was probably more speed to hire than speed to fit. And I think that is a big thing that I wouldn't do.
Well, and that sort of ties in your whole conversation about really focusing on culture, right?
Yeah.
Because your culture is your people, no matter what.
Yes.
You can't buy culture. You have to
You
earn it,
can't.
you
You can't.
know? And so, well, with that said, let me just ask you one more question. If you were to give any advice or guidance to any of those, budding leaders, people who want to develop their leader skills, what might that be? What are some of the things that you'd say is, hey, listen, focus on this or have a focus here or there?
Yeah, I'll go back to get involved with other people inside the industry, right? Go to conferences and get your voice heard. Talk to your colleagues, your counterparts. Understand the pain that people are going through and the wins that they're going through. I'll go back that we're going to be stronger when we're linking arms and we check the ego at the side and we start to learn from each other. So and there's so many. I mean, this industry is just filled with so many unbelievable people. It's like just big-hearted individuals that are here that they want to make an impact and want to make a difference. And you mentioned it earlier as you start your own business or it can get lonely, right? But you surround yourself with counterparts inside the industry and other individuals, you'll feel more connected, you'll feel more inspired. They'll help you pull you out of a bad day. I would say don't try to do it yourself. It's
Yeah.
not there's not needed. There's enough caring people in this industry that want to help each other and go find those and surround yourself with those people.
Well, I really appreciate it. Don't try it. Just don't do it all yourself. So
Yeah.
that's
Yeah.
awesome. Well, John, I want to thank you so much. We've already come to the end of our time, and it went by very quick, and it's been a wonderful conversation, at least from my side of it.
I really enjoyed it. We just said we were going to have some fun and we had some fun, right? Yeah.
Exactly, for sure we have. If you don't mind hanging on a second, I'm going to do my little outro right now, and
Okay.
we'll leave it for post-production for people to see it. But for folks out there, we want to really thank you for joining John and me today. It's been a great conversation, and hopefully been some things you've had an opportunity to glean from. We're always very interested in whatever you want to bring to the table because what we bring here is based on what you're interested in. But my name is Tony DiAugustino. I'm the founder and CEO of Inspire Care 360. And this is ECE CEO Biography, Sage Wisdom for Child Care Leaders. I want to thank my guest again, John Bork, and want to say to everybody, have just an absolutely wonderful day. And we will talk to you very soon. Take care. You have been listening to ECE Biography, Sage Wisdom for Child Care Leaders. Thank you very much for listening. We're greatly appreciative of your time. We will continue to produce these programs on an ongoing basis, and please hit the download button and subscribe to our podcast so you do not miss an episode. Thank you very much and hope you have a wonderful day.